I would love to check this out. This is by Vernosis, by the way, and we've seen some Vernosis videos, absolute bangers. Let's do it. Let's jump into this. It's a 17-minute video, and then afterwards, we jump back into Geometry Dash.
Dash has seen some great players come and go, but none have achieved as much as Zoink. Zoink has been dominating the game, beating demon after demon, leaving everyone around him in the dust.
Who would be number one if Zoink never existed?
Wasn't the case, and the game progressed without his presence. That's what we will be discussing today. So let's dive deep into one of Geometry Dash's biggest what-ifs. What if Zoink never played Geometry Dash? But before we discuss it, we need to talk about his brief but dominant stint in Geometry Dash. Zoink's early career consisted of Minecraft videos, in which
Yo, I swear a lot of gaming goats or like, you know, people who made it on YouTube or social media, they all started with Minecraft. Like Mr. Beast started with Minecraft. A lot of Call of Duty YouTubers that blew up started with Minecraft. I swear Minecraft is like the intro to a lot of people. That's crazy, dude. W Minecraft, dude. W Minecraft.
Was seen playing various PvP modes, but soon his friend would introduce him to GD, and he was just like us, progressing to the main levels. But then he decided to say f it, and he'd jump all the way to Bloodbath. Now, for a player of his caliber at the time, this was a tough task, but he persevered, and in late 2020, he would complete it. But mind you, he'd only been playing the game for a couple of months, and if that isn't already crazy, it was about to get a whole lot.
Guys, a couple of months? How many months is that? I've been playing Geometry Dash for 3 months now, and I can't even get past all the main levels yet.
Crazier. In just a couple months, he'd achieve 75% on Sonic Wave.
No way.
He would then drop it and go straight for Zodiac? And just like Bloodbath, in a few months, he would also complete it on October 24th of 2021. This would mark the first of many, and yes, I mean many, list demons. He would complete demon after demon after demon.
But you don't play daily? That's true.
He was quietly playing a level called Slaughterhouse. He had made rapid progress, and before you knew it, on April 11th, Zoink would become the first victor. After this, he started a short but important conquest named Acheron.
Oh my goodness.
Acheron was a new top 1, created by Riot to be the end-all, be-all demon. The level was meant to push boundaries,
like,
and
how
view
can you
what
be
Bloodbath
this
was
good
for
at games,
1.9. It was released on July 7th of 2021, and was given to player Wolves to be the verifier. He'd buffed the level as he viewed it to be too easy,
What's up,
and
Boric?
actually made progress really quick, as he achieved 96%, though his dominance wouldn't last long, as he would ultimately drop the level, making it an open verification. This is when Zoink pounced at the opportunity. He would join a race consisting of some of the game's rising stars, such as 1 Alpha Helix and Showcase UK, but just like his earlier accomplishments, he would make insane progress, even with his intense buffing. But then, suddenly, he would just stop.
Oh my
Doogie
God.
took his sudden disappearance as a chance to hopefully fix the level.
What if he never came back?
Community was starting to get upset about the obscene buffs Zoink's made. Doogie would make quick progress, getting, wait, is that Zoink?
Oh, wait.
Zoink would come back and beat the level shortly after, verifying the level on the 22nd of August, cementing him as a new best player. Hey, but screw that. Let's see how this would have played out without him. Wolves, no matter.
They said, all right, let's just cut him out of Geometry Dash history right there.
Wolves, no matter what, would have quit the level, so Acheron would always be an open verification. Space UK could have done it, but since he only played the level for around a month, I don't believe he would have gone through with it.
And
mainly because verifying another top 1 would bring more attention onto him, causing him to possibly get caught, which I gotta say, would be a crazy timeline. The two main things that would change would be Doggy and 1 Alpha Helix's experience with the level. As for Doggy, I don't see him caring about the level, as his main motivation was trying to stop Zoink's super buff version from hitting the servers. And because he had some progress already, that's probably what made him play the level, meaning Trick would be the first victor of Acheron instead of Doggy, and 1 Alpha Helix would have more than likely been the verifier, as he was the only one who never stopped playing. Never stopped, never what? Never stop, never what? Though the version he was playing was a bit easier, being projected to place around the top 3, but just like we've seen with other levels like Sacchaman Circles, it probably would have placed at number 1, and ultimately dropping the top 2 to 3 a couple months later, meaning him verifying it would have shot him straight into the spotlight, where we could have seen some new levels being made, specifically for him to verify, and maybe a different trajectory for Flame Wall. Mainly because 1 Alpha Helix being busy with other verifications, we could have seen a different verifier, meaning Quantos Cientos would have never gotten the level, leading the level to be completely different difficulty-wise. Zoink's biggest rival during this time was Space UK. Now you may remember Space for being a hacker, but back then, that wasn't the case. As Zoink would start to gain steam, Space would beat the Golden as his 5th demon. This sent shockwaves to the community. Space would then start to beat demon after demon, dethroning Wolves and RG, becoming the new best player. Zoink wouldn't back down though, as he also, as explained earlier, would topple each new extreme demon, going head to head with Space. Space's dominance would only push Zoink more, as with every demon Zoink beat, his attempt count for each level would get lower and lower. His speed with completions would lead him to one of the craziest flukes.
That is crazy, man. While Space was cheating, Zoink was actually doing things legitimately
Ever, where he would fluke Lucid Nightmares from 18%? Like what? You're not human, bruh. Anyway, with all these new demon completions, Zoink's points on the stats sphere would continue to increase, bringing him closer to the #1 spot. And on July 13th of 2023, Zoink would complete XO, which would give him enough points to become the new #1 player. Funnily enough though, Zoink and Space UK's rivalry mirrored Riot and Cyclic's battle during 1.9, like literally to a T, with Cyclic and Space UK being hackers, Space beating a wave level, and Zoink doing a more skill-based level, just like Sonic Wave and Bloodbath. But let's get back where we were. What would happen if Zoink never existed? Well, we can first assume that Space's opinions on levels would hold as priority, as he'd be seen as the only person who could be anything, meaning the placement of levels would be completely different.
The guy was
Slaughterhouse would more
than
likely stay at #1. Sacrament Circles would never have the #1 spot.
Yeah, but then he eventually got exposed, right? So
and Slaughterhouse would more than likely be dethroned by a level named Banshee, which at the time was seen as a new top 1, with of course Space being the verifier, and without Zoink to distract him, Space would probably verify it, leading to a whole new wave of difficulty. And with his exposal more than likely coming after this, the community would be left in a really bad situation, where all the hardest demons would probably have no victim.
it would just be completely empty, no verifier.
And we could see Banshee get removed from the list, as Rotha would probably unrate it for being hacked. This would be the first time since 2014 that levels within the top 10 would be unrated, which would be a crazy timeline. Though players like Trick and Doogie would do their best to fix the plague Space brought upon the game, since the game state would be so terrible that we could see a huge drop in the player base, as people would feel disgusted with top players, viewing them all as untrustworthy. Now the stats viewer right now
So you're telling me Zoink basically saved the Geometry Dash community?
It's clearly Zoink as the #1.
That's crazy.
But without him, we could see new players reaching the #1 spot, such as Trick, Doogie, and especially W Popoff. As with Amethyst, a level that was verified by him would more than likely still come out, meaning maybe with this, W Popoff would pop off. Get it? Pop off. I need a job. But speaking about verifications, Zoink has verified 12 levels, with 9 of them placing within the top 10 at the time of their release. So without Zoink, this means many boundaries of difficulty would never be reached. But how? Well, we first have to talk about Acheron. As explained before, one Alpha Helix's version would more than likely be the one that released, meaning that we would see Abyss of Darkness become the new top 1 and stay as #1 until the completion of Silent Club Step, and we would also see Acheron fall into the #3 spot, with Space UK keeping Slaughterhouse above it. Avernus would be another top 1 taken from us, as this level, just like Acheron, would be more than likely to be released in a much easier state. Avernus was a level that was in development hell for a couple of years, consistently being buffed, as it was intended to be the hardest demon in the game, matching its prequel, the Golden. As each new top 1 was released, it was buffed more and more, until finally it was finished and handed to Doogie. But unfortunately, he would drop it, and Shrek would more likely be the one to verify it. He would release it in a state that most people would consider to be easier than Silent Club Step, and more than likely would be placed somewhere within the top 5, but probably never top 1. Cockmock, on the other hand, is legit the easiest prediction, with Trick originally verifying it, and shortly after, Zoink would verify a bug fix update, and Trick would beat that too. So Zoink would also verify Tunnel of Despair, which I gotta say, this level sucks. Like straight up, just look at this, or this, or that.
That's
but without
crazy.
Zoink, I don't think the usual suspects would go for this level, as people only started beating it because it was verified with 0 victors. But without Zoink, we'd more than likely see a new face. A person who was trying to make a name for themselves would pick the level up, and my 2 picks are Ideal Devil or Septagon 7. Septagon is self-explanatory, as he loves to play levels that are seen as impossible or just very unknown, but with them all still being impossible. And as for Ideal Devil, with his hardest being Slaughterhouse at the time, he could try to pick this up and make a name for himself. but this is the most up in the air level, as there isn't really any much to help with this. The level more than likely would either never come out or even be remade by a team like Cherry Team, just like how the community has done with other impossible levels. But with Tidal Wave, honestly, this level would probably never get verified. OnlyLink at the time was at best known by very few people, so a big name player taking on this level would be, well, it probably wouldn't happen. The only possible player is maybe W Popoff, as around
So
this
if it weren't for Zoink, a lot of these levels would still be unknown.
time, this is when he started to get really good. But even if it did come out, it'd probably never get rated, as Zoink's name's associated with it.
And that
Plus,
looks
without Zoink, it
impossible.
would never be a top
Zoink
one.
made
So
it
there'd be a
possible.
very low chance of this level even being added to the list. Through the Gates was a level he verified out of the blue in about a week. The only changes is Septicon 7 would have verified it, as he already had 93% on it. Christmas House. Unnerfed Yatagarasu is another level Zoink verified, which I don't see another player going for. Zoink really only went after this because during this time, he had beaten the entire main list and was bored out of his mind. So we
predicted
decided to
that
beat
Pop
this
Off
for
would be
whatever
number
reason.
one.
This level had some
Let's
huge
see.
changes that made Yatagarasu genuinely atrocious. Like, bro, just look at this. But Zoink would verify this level after 50 deaths at a single part. Personally, I don't think this level had much of an impact
That's
on many
freaking
people.
insane.
So let's go to
50?
move on and forget about this mess. Zoink would also verify Nullscapes, the sequel to the beloved level named Shardscapes. This level was a huge step up in difficulty, with Zoink spending over
level
6
looks so
months on
cool,
its
though.
verification and a
If only it
staggering
wasn't that hard.
90,000 attempts. Mind you, this level was
90,000?
originally made to be a top 15, but Zoink being Zoink, he decided to super buff it, as usual. If Zoink didn't exist, I believe Kiba would have made this level an open verification, and since many players aren't as good with Robot as they are with other game modes such as Wave and Ship, Nullscapes would have taken another year until any substantial progress would have been made. I feel like we would have gone down a similar timeline to the present day, with the first Victor race, having one player blatantly hacking their progress to get the level of
yes?
attention it needs, for a player to lock in and verify Nullscapes. But who would this player be? I can only assume Spook would be the verifier, with him beating the level a few months ago in secret, leading Nullscapes to place at number 3 on our demon list. Ashley Wave Trials is also a level that would be heavily affected by Zoink's absence, with Zoink picking the level up around July of 2022, with him verifying it on November of 2024. After a tiny break where he'd beat a few levels, you know, just a few, this level would be absolute hell for anyone playing, as this is a wave only demon, with it containing some really weird and awkward parts. The level would be published all the way back in 2020, but would just be a little bit impossible for the time being. You know, just a tiny bit. Thankfully
my
though,
gosh.
Oddmod wanted the level to be
Can't even
playable.
see what's going on. My eyes cannot
Possible for
follow
the
right
time
there,
being.
guys.
You know, just a tiny bit.
What the heck? You can't tell me this was the real time speed of the actual level.
Thankfully though, Oddmod wanted the level to be playable, so she decided to update it to its current state
Thank you.
as a top 10. It would set a bet for the first
And
person
this
to beat
is
it
the
would get
playable
to date
version?
her. But was Zoink got the picture?
What?
It would set a bet for the first person to beat it
I will date anyone who beats Ashley Wave Trout. That is
would get to date her.
crazy.
But was Zoink got the
200,000
picture?
views on
I feel
that.
like there's an obvious pick of who would have been the verifier. Doobies, an up-and-coming player who shocked the
So,
community with his absurd wave skill, with him getting grief in 3 runs, and also verifying another wave-only level named Death Factory
did she
and
follow
only
up with the bet
13,000
or
attempts.
what?
I can see him verifying Ashley Wave Trials as his first big breakout completion before his grief progress even happened, making the level stand as a top 20. And this time, instead of just assuming, I actually reached out to Doobies myself and asked him if this would be accurate, and of course he said yes.
Would you verify Ashley Wave Trials if Zoink didn't already? Yeah, nah.
Anyways, Quantu's processing is yet another
A lot of people
oddball in
only
the Zoink
did things
verification
because
saga,
Zoink did.
with it being a top 10 that requires some insane CPS. Zoink could verify this shortly after his Ashley Wave Trials completion, and unfortunately wouldn't have the level rated for nearly a year, leading many community figures to think RobTop didn't want to rate levels verified by Zoink, mainly because of all the sheer amount of slop he's verified. Without Zoink though, I think this level would surely go to WizKid, with him being an absolute unit when it came to spam, and he's also the go to playing terrible levels. No diss towards anyone here, you just can't tell me this looks any type of fun. Like, come on bro, pack it up.
It looks cool,
Nah,
though.
to one
It
of the
looks
biggest
cool.
challenges yet, Thinking Space 2. This level is a huge toss-up, with this being Jamshidash's current top 1, being verified only hours before our current top 2 named Amethyst. Wait, what? Oh, fuck. Thinking Space 2 carries some of the hardest
Thinking
gameplay the
Space
game has
2
ever
is
seen,
still number
with
one
the
to
second
this
half
day,
being
guys.
miles ahead of the first half difficulty-wise. It includes spam sections that most players now
Does Zoink
aren't
get
even
a date?
capable of achieving. And no, I'm not just coping because I can't hit over 13 CPS. Shut up. But in all seriousness, I imagine this level being passed on to Trick after his 4-month retirement from the game, mostly due to the fact that he came back with loads of motivation, with him trying to set a new world record on the level named Eternus. But this would take a while to be verified, with Trick trying to get back to the skill he was at before. So with that, we can assume Thinking Space 2 to be verified.
So how does like how does taking a break in Geometry Dash work? Like if you're one of the top players, if you take even a little bit of time off, like how much skill would that take away from you, and how long would it take you to come back to it? Because you know, I used to be a swimmer, and like even if you take a week off, you gotta get back into training for like 2 to 3 weeks in order to get back to the shape that you were a week ago. If you take
2
a week
months
off.
after Zoink's real verification date, setting it off for a July verification. And last but not least, Defeated Circles. This is Zoink's most recent verification,
'Cause I'm
which I
sure
can
the
see
muscle
being
memory is
verified
still
by a
there.
variety of players, with this level placing at number 17 when it came out. But if I were to guess who, I would definitely point at Diamond, as with him being the verifier of Sakaman Circles, he could surely take the verifier role very easily, verifying in a similar amount of time. But again, it could legit be anybody, like W Popoff, Cursed, or even someone that's unknown. But despite all the top ones and other verification we'd miss out without Zoink,
faces
we'd
in the
also
scene?
lose the most crucial completions in Geometry Dash history, the Paul completions. But in all
Paul
seriousness,
completions.
without Zoink, so much would be
Do
different,
you still
and
do
lots
that?
of people's careers would
Does
be
Zoink still
altered,
do
as
that?
Zoink's first Victor titles would be wiped, giving new players a chance to make a name for themselves. So
That's
who would these
true.
players be? Let me try something real quick. Let's see if I can speed
Hurry
run
up.
through all these changes. 3, 2, 1.
Let's go.
The first Victor of Aerial Gleam would be Cursed. Amethyst would still have no Victor. Wartsy
Oh,
would be
shoot.
Andromeda first. Combustion would be taken down by Thunder. Thunder would also be the first to be Deadly or Clubstep. Deimos
Oh.
would go down to Quiver. And Edge of Destiny, the person Human 42. Every end to Garbag. Flameball will still be unbeaten.
Okay.
Skipo would take down Jigsaw first. Tiago would take down Kyoki. Pookie would fall to Trick. Salgaman would be sowed by Big Thunder 556. Slaughterhouse would go to Cursed. Silent Eclipse up to Doogie. Solar Flare to Nabia. Subterminal Point beaten by GG Nop. And the Lightning Rod would be beaten first by WizKid. Time. Holy crap, we set a world record.
Isn't that insane though? Like one person like being gone from the community would change the entire trajectory of the community, because Zoink is that good and dominant at the game. That's crazy.
But for other
Jeez,
possible
man.
changes, 2.2 would possibly
Right place
come
at
out
the right
later,
time.
as the game wouldn't have as much momentum because of the sudden exposal of Space UK. And without Zoink to continue driving the game forward, development within the community wouldn't happen
Wow.
as fast. This would cause RobTop to continue adding on to 2.2, causing it to come out much
Wait,
later.
that's a good comparison. This is like removing LeBron or Michael Jordan from the NBA. No, exactly.
The Geometry Dash Awards are a recurring event that happens yearly, with Zoink winning the Best Player award for the
my
past
God.
2 years. Without Zoink though, who'd win
Undoubtedly.
2023 and
Who would it be?
2024?
Doggy?
Well, 2023 would easily go to Doggy, as
Oh,
during
yep.
this time, he was massacring demons left and right. The community would pick him as the best player for that year. 2024 would be a tight race between W Popoff and Trick, as this was the year of the rise of Popoff.
Bro,
You gotta
he's just
remember,
that
this was the
dominant
year
in
he
the
beat
community.
Slaughterhouse 3 times in a row, and would be some of the hardest demons with low ass attempt
Insane.
counts. Like, how'd you beat Abyss of Darkness in under 13k? This doesn't make sense. Trick, on the other hand, would be a player who already established themselves as a capable player, though without Zoink, some notable levels wouldn't exist yet, such as Tidal Wave, and even Zoink's version of Acheron. This could make voting sway more towards W Popoff. Popoff would win the Best Player of the Year, and with the 2025 awards not being out at the time of this recording, I think it's a pretty clear choice that W Popoff would wipe the floor with his contenders, with him getting near Zoink's skill in the present day. This leads perfectly into the next point. How would the current landscape of Geometry Dash look different without Zoink? Zoink is currently verifying a level named Orbit, an orb-inspired level made by Mindcap. This level is
This
considered to
looks
be the
so
hardest memory
crazy.
level,
Lots
as it's
of things
projected to be
going
a
on.
top 10 once released. Well, maybe not the hardest memory level, but honestly, I have no idea who the level would have been given to, as the only player that would make any sense would be Cobra Blitz. Cobra Blitz was one of the first victors of Limbo, and he's also been hovering around the top 50 of the demon list for a long time. time now. So because of this, he would more than likely be picked up by Minecraft as a potential verifier of orbit. This would push him into the spotlight, which he very well deserves. But to summarize, without Zoink, the game would be completely different. Space UK would ruin the credibility of top players, leading the game to be in an ice age per se, where we'd be waiting for a player to essentially reset the view people had of top play. Mini levels would be released, and mini levels would be significantly easier. We'd also see some players reach some higher ceilings than they have now. The list itself would also be easier, possibly even seeing Bloodlust still on it to this day, and the stats sphere would be a lot more diverse, as we may see people from other foreign countries dominating the game, much like the early days of Geometry Dash. But with all this talk about where Geometry Dash would be without Zoink, where would Zoink be without Geometry Dash?
Yeah,
well, in my personal opinion, I assume he'd have a successful career as a Minecraft YouTuber, since that's what he originally began
Honestly, I don't think so.
Content on, and with his personality, I could see it working really well for him. Or he could just be working a 9-to-5
Nah, I don't think that either. I don't think he would be big in Minecraft or a 9-to-5 worker. With his talents and like with his skills in basically just anything. Like if someone's that talented at one game, you know they're gonna be super talented at another game. Like he could have jumped into Fortnite just like Doggy did, or like he could have jumped into a totally different game and be like excelled exceptionally, like, and be at the top of the leaderboard somewhere else. But I think it's because Geometry Dash was such a big game with such a supporting community. He ended up being super successful in this case. If Zoink was cracked in Minecraft, he would be a Bed Wars YouTuber. Yeah, but I think the ceiling is way higher as a Geometry Dash YouTuber for him personally, because there's already people that have already made a name for themselves in the Bed Wars community, as you know, in the YouTube space. Anyways, guys, that was a banger video. Shout out to Vernosis. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. What you guys think the Geometry Dash community would be like without Zoink.